Okay, they just walked out, so I am sure that someone's about to walk in just because the bell just rang. But I forgot to do this yesterday. I was so embarrassed. Last night I was talking to a friend of mine and I just suddenly went, oh no. So I have to make sure I get it done today. So two things I covered today. The first one was I gave them a brief introduction to one of the biggest ideas of English. So let me explain why my job sucks. For a lot of students, they consider English to be, can I read or not? If you can, you assume I'm done. I'm done here. So as if, reading was just as simple as, can you move this from this hand to the other hand? I'm done. But not only are there tricks to it where you can, throw it, maybe go way up high in the air and, woo, and boom, you catch it right here. That amused me. But anyway, there's levels to reading, but it's not that simple. Or the student who hates to read, say, I don't need to, I don't need to, I don't need to. One of the reasons that I really emphasize why we need to read is because of the world that we're missing out on if we don't read. Reading allows us to see across space, time, culture, gender, everything. When we read, we are able to immerse ourselves at a level that film just, sometimes a film can come close, but it's not quite the same. So the word that I covered today to introduce this topic is archetype. And the definition I gave them is the incorrect definition of archetype. I put a repeating idea. That's not correct. So why did I do it? Why? Why did I lie? Because I am attempting to simplify things as much as possible, and I will spend the rest of the year trying to make it right. I need them to have a basic understanding of the idea, so that's why I went with repeating idea, even though that would probably better define perhaps trope or motif, but I needed to briefly cover the idea of an archetype. So I gave them several examples of similar characters across multiple genres, and I was able to say, see, and that's a rogue. This is a rogue character. They're lovable. They often are very attractive because they're a bad boy. But the trickster type character, if you were to go more deeper into the archetype thing, the wise sage type character, Ben Kenobi, the Gandalf, the guy in the Hobbit or in the what do they call it? The wise old Harfoot in the Rings of Power show that I just watched last night. These are repeating ideas, even though it's a bigger thing than just saying a repeating idea. So that was, I think that was probably 15 minutes of class, me screaming and hollering about that, which I'm not going to do here. I use too many classroom like individual examples for that to translate to the big screen. Next point. To be articulate, this is the note today. If you notice, I'm really emphasizing the being articulate thing. To be articulate, there are tricks. Use them. So what I did is I point out the fact that as I was explaining archetype, I used some rather horrific images, genuinely horrific images, like so horrific. Without context, I wouldn't even say them here because you'd be like, oh, why would you do that? You should be fired. Well, you're probably not wrong. Nothing inappropriate, but to be articulate, you have to use tricks. You have to use imagery. You have to use metaphor. You have to do something. This is what makes you articulate. Let me go with a singing example. A great singer is able to do things beyond just sing. All of us can sing, just not very good. A good singer is able to hit different what do they call them? Chord? No, not chords. Octaves, 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 whatever that word is. Because they can do things outside of la, 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 la. Yeah. Well, a good speaker can do the same thing. This is why people will pay $100 to go watch certain comedians perform, because they're remarkably articulate in the way they tell a story. This is why Eddie Murphy was a god when I was growing up. He was a god. That ice cream story, Mr. T story, yeah, that was good stuff. Chris Rock with his Robitussin story, the big piece of chicken story. These are good tales. Okay. Oh no, 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 no. Don't mention Bill Cosby's Dad is Great because it's chocolate cake. Don't mention it, even though it's another example of a guy who tells a really cool story. Okay, so yeah, I won't give you that example. There are a few things that it's like, I need to go back in time, smack them, and make sure none of this happens. No, I'm not advocating violence, but just I grew up with that guy, not literally. But yeah, I mean, anyways, to be articulate, there's tricks. Now, what's weird is outside of giving them like examples of the tricks myself, I didn't explain what the tricks were. I didn't even tell them things like simile, metaphor, alliteration, all those things. I just said, there are tricks, use them. But that's kind of the setup for everything else. Now, the grand finale, which is how I summarize a lot of stories. Whenever we finish a story or a unit, I always say, okay, time to draw a picture. Well, why do I do that? Because for students that are paying attention, drawing a picture forces them to concentrate and use their brain in a way that they might not normally do it, because they're forced to go back to look at the story to find a detail that they could use to draw a picture of. Perhaps they got to review the story, but they also have to analyze what the words were in the story that they can kind of rally around. All right, that is the video for today. Apparently it won't end. I'm clicking the button. Still here.